It's time for today's face-off on Fox Soul. Challengers Quan LX and Big Angry Adams. Ready to go blow by blow on those hot topics. Face-off on Fox Soul starts right now.
DoorDash just deactivated me 2 days after I reported my sexual assault. Hey guys, I just lost my job, and they won't tell me why. They're supposed to send an email immediately after deactivation providing you the reason why and a link to appeal, and they didn't.
Quanell, you're looking different this evening.
Just a little bit different.
Okay. So, it is just me and Matt tonight, and we are talking about this viral TikTok video, which we cannot show you because it involves a very small white appendage. But no, this young lady was delivering for DoorDash, and she came up on the porch of a residence in an open door, and laying on the couch in what appeared to be a passed out state was a man with his pants pulled down and, his stomach, and hiding somewhere down there was what appeared to be a phallus that wasn't going to impress anyone, Matt, but I'm not into those. Matt, you are. Were you impressed by it?
I wasn't impressed by it. I'm not going to lie. I was actually more shocked that she showed the video and posted it on social media in general. That's the thing that shocked me more than anything.
I mean, it seemed like a bit of an invasion of privacy because she actually stepped in the home to take it. I was bothered by the equating of seeing this man in a state of undress with sexual assault. So here are the questions, right? Now, there are obviously perverts in this world who like to show their ding-a-ling and force it upon other people, especially young women, right? So there's a possibility that he wasn't really passed out and that he just got in a state of undress because he got sexual gratification on exposing himself to her. That would be awful. Yeah. It would be indecent exposure. It wouldn't be a sexual assault. And there is a world of difference between the two. And even assuming he did it intentionally, it horribly minimizes victims of actual rape to suggest that her just happening to see a man pretending to be passed out with his penis out was somehow a sexual assault. I mean, that's just it's hyperbole. On the flip side, he could have really been passed out, right? Let's say he drank too much or smoked too much. I have done both and eaten way too much in the aftermath. When I stopped drinking, it wasn't because I was an alcoholic. I never had what I would consider a drinking problem. I did it because after I had a few beers, I would always make horrible food choices, and I wanted to be the not so big angry. Now could I see myself passing out like that? And no, I mean, clearly, but I just didn't buy that she was assaulted. I think she had an uncomfortable experience and she was making much ado about nothing. But Matt, you have the response from DoorDash, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And, I'm going to read a portion of it. So it says that we've seen some tough and sensitive posts over the past few days. We want to clear the air. No one should ever have to experience sexual assault, harassment, abuse, and DoorDash never deactivates someone for reporting it, full stop. We take these reports incredibly serious and work closely with law enforcement to investigate and support those affected. In this case, the Dasher let us know about an experience that made them feel unsafe, and that's exactly what we always want Dashers to do. Our team immediately began investigating, has been in direct contact with law enforcement, and is prepared to fully support any of these efforts. However, posting a video of a customer in their home and disclosing their personal details publicly is a clear violation of our policies. That is the sole reason that this Dasher's account was deactivated, along with the customers, while we investigated. We've also ensured that the Dasher has full access to their earnings, and we know that these are sensitive situations, and we want every Dasher to know, if you ever feel unsafe or experience something concerning, come to us. We're here to listen, act, and support. So here's my thing, hearing that, and also kind of going off of what you said. The thing that really pissed me off more than anything was seeing her go into the home, seeing her take the video and stuff like that, because let's be real. The first thing that popped in my mind was, what if this man had a medical emergency and she just left him there? that was the first thing that popped in my head, because I know a lot of people would look at that and be like, "Oh, this is awkward." Yeah, it may be awkward, but what if this man had a heart attack, had a stroke, had what have you, and he needed actual medical attention? Now, going to your point though, seeing somebody inside of their house and just being butt naked, pants down, door open and stuff, it's an awkward situation no matter what the case may be. But I will say this much.
Well, I
So
mean,
I
it's not always an awkward situation, right? There's plenty of pornography dedicated to the delivery guy stumbling on the naked woman in the, I think there's plenty of people that would take a different view of it if it was the male delivery driver and the female, beautiful female state of undress. But, if he was doing it with intentionality, right, to expose himself, which I don't see any evidence that he was, but clearly she thinks that he was. I mean, I definitely think that would be a crime on some level, just not a sexual assault. I absolutely agree with that. I think these gig economy online platforms, I think they're just all about giving private equity and the stockholders, shareholders, all that, making big money. I don't think they care at all about their contract employees. I don't think they care at all about the customer experience. Although I do think of the food delivery services, DoorDash is the one I think it's far better than Uber Eats and some of the other competitors like Postmates. But I don't think anyone believes that they care. We're building a system in America driven by these apps where no one cares. No one has benefits. No one has good jobs. This is why people like Mondami are probably going to get elected in New York City, despite him being a bad person, in my opinion. It's because there are so many miserably unhappy people working for giant corporations that don't give a damn about them and don't provide them much. But it does seem like she clearly violated the terms,
Yeah.
and that they took the appropriate action. I just don't have a tremendous amount of empathy for her and her behavior. I do have empathy that she saw a, I'm trying to think of some cute, appropriate term for micro penis, but I can't. And maybe it wasn't a micro. Maybe it's just because the only one I see all the time of mine is a.
Oh Lord.
But do you have food delivered, or do you like to go pick it up yourself?
I'm not gonna lie, I actually go and pick it up. And the reason being is I don't like paying those delivery fees and all of that. So I go pick it up. Charles, let me tell you one thing that's crazy about this video though. So the video has a little bit more, and she is like a pressure cooker. Like she blows the top off and she starts yelling at the very end of the video. I know I cut it off right before the very end. She's got a lot more of that on her actual TikTok page, and then she has a follow-up video as well. The thing that's even crazier to me right now, I'm looking at the likes, the comments, the saves. There were 3.2 million people who liked this post. There were an additional 74,000, I'm sorry, people who commented on it. And there were an additional 210,000 who saved the clip itself. So with that being said, the thing that's crazy to me is the simple fact of how many people are engaged with this. So I'm going to read a couple of the comments really quick from her TikTok page. It says, somebody says, let me get this right. A man ordered a DoorDash, instructed you to leave it in front of his house or in the front door. When you saw the door open and he wasn't covered properly in his property, you took out your phone and recorded this man while he was unconscious. So the thing to me that kind of leads me to a question I have for you. In this type of situation, taking a video of somebody who is nude inside of their property, inside of their home, whatever it may be, and then posting it online, what's the legal ramifications of that? Is there something
I
that
think
can
it's a
happen?
clear invasion of privacy if she stepped into the home, which she appeared to do, right? So I didn't know, like that's like my instructions. Like I have, I live here in the city, and I have a tall wrought iron fence around it with like a door handle doorway into it, and I have specific instructions. The fence is unlocked, leave it on the porch, not in front of the garage. I always have the lights on for them. But if he had detailed instructions that said, hey, leave this on the porch, where she didn't even need to look in the house or go in the house, and he didn't do anything to prompt her entry into the home, then it really makes it seem like she was just completely the bad actor. Again, I don't know if that's the case, but if it was, it seems like it was an invasion of his privacy that we shouldn't be making jokes about him. It's, I mean, it seems pretty awful. And she seems, I mean, I already was bothered by her characterization of calling this a sexual assault, right? It's not, right? During my years as a policeman and during my, 25 years as an attorney, I have dealt with, in the criminal justice space, I have dealt with actual sexual assaults, and they're horrible, right? I think it is the most despicable and unexplainable crime, right? Murder, when it's done to be mean or evil or crazy, it's horrible. But there are times when you can justify a murder: defense of a third party, defense of yourself, defense of your property, all of these things, right? You can never, ever, ever justify raping someone, right?
Exactly.
And her sexual assault language bothered me. But yeah, if his instructions were leaving in front of the house or leaving in the front of the porch, and then she still leaned in and videoed him, I think he would definitely have a civil claim for invasion of his privacy. I think that's probably something Hulu thought about in taking immediate action to try to limit their liability. If I was the lawyer that he called, because some DoorDasher is not going to be able to fade a big, massive judgment, I would probably sue her and DoorDash and try to get that check for my client. But yeah, most certainly it was an invasion. The counter argument is he left the door standing wide open. Yeah. Light was on. And that's what I don't know, right? Like, I don't know the situation. I don't know if this guy really just got drunk, if he had a medical issue, as you mentioned, or, it was all set up because he's a pervert and wanted to expose himself to this young girl, right? Yeah. So we just don't know what really happened. But if it's true that she wasn't even supposed to knock on the door or leave it in the house, it paints her in a very different light.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. Well, let's go ahead and shift gears. So coming back after the break, we're going to go ahead and talk about.
No, I got to finish. I got to say one more thing, Matt.
Oh, you got to say one more thing.
The fact that you don't DoorDash because you're cheap is insane. You are the producer of all the original content. How many TV shows do you run? Like 5? I know you making stacks, right? And I know that you're doing all right. You've got your kickball career. You got this. Like, I'm going to tell you why I don't DoorDash. And I had to after my knee surgery, and I didn't like it because that's the only reason I'm familiar with it, because I couldn't go anywhere, so I was DoorDash. I don't like strangers having access to my damn food. There's too many whores. So I don't trust people. Like, I don't trust going to, hotels now because of the environment. They have those, the shampoo and the conditioner that just stay, right? No, man, I don't trust that people ain't sticking stuff in there just to be, I lived in a fraternity house. I know how people can be. And let me tell you something. There's too many videos of people sipping on drinks, reaching in and taking a nugget. I know that if I'm picking up food for my kids over the years, I have always had my hand in the bag. So why do we think that strangers aren't going to do that?
Oh, and we've seen plenty of videos out there where people are doing that shit.
Right.
And people are out there doing that type of thing.
Watch your language. But yes, there is. I mean, look, there are some businesses that tape it up good, right? Like here in town, Joey Uptown, Shake Shack. There's a place, but most of them don't, right?
Yeah,
I don't know, man. True. But the fact that you're just too cheep.
Oh, I am cheap. That's the only way I could go ahead and survive in this. Listen, in this day and age.
All right, so let's get going. Let's move to the next topic of this great Quanella show.
Case that could decide the future of gay marriage in America. This case was brought by Kim Davis. It made headlines earlier this year because she filed this case in front of the Supreme Court, asking the Supreme Court to essentially overturn Obergefell, the decision that legalized gay marriage in the United States of America. And on November 7th, the 9 justices will be meeting at their conference behind closed doors to decide whether or not to take the case. Remember, to take a case, the Supreme Court needs 4 justices to sign on. That means 4 justices have to agree to hear Kim Davis's challenge. It will be rejected as well. If they take the case, then they'll be briefing on the merits of whether or not to overturn Obergefell, and then there'll be oral argument, and we won't have a decision until June.
In this round, here's Charles Big Angry Adams.
All right, Matt, that Instagram reel actually did a pretty good job in nutshelling how the Supreme Court takes cases. and what is going on legalistically with gay marriage. Obviously, Oberfell was the very narrowly decided Supreme Court opinion that used kind of both due process and equal protection to create enough concurrences to achieve the goal of saying, hey, this is a fundamental right. The right to marry is a fundamental right, and it is unconstitutional to deny that right to an entire segment of society just because they want to engage in same-sex marriage. It used the same math that was used in Roe v. Wade and was first introduced in Loving v. Virginia, which was a seminal case from the Supreme Court during the civil rights era and the Jim Crow era in America that said, hey, you cannot deny people the right to engage in mixed race marriages.
Yep.
So when Roe v. Wade was overturned, Justice Thomas and Dobbs, Justice Thomas, who is the African-American Supreme Court justice, married to a white woman, he actually suggested outright that the judicial math employed to overturn Roe v. Wade and Dobbs could also lead to a review of Oberfell, which to any legal scholar or just student of the law or lawyer, it's crazy that someone in a mixed race marriage that was only allowed to engage in mixed race marriage in many states, and because of an opinion, Loving v. Virginia.
And that was what, in the mid 60s?
Yeah.
It hasn't been that long ago.
And it's the basis. It laid the groundwork, the firmament for the judicial math for Oberfell. And it's crazy how tone deaf Justice Thomas is, right? And this Kim Davis thing, I mean, we all remember Eddie Munster looking little junior senator Ted Cruz going up there to Kentucky. It's Rowan County, Kentucky, and standing with Kim Davis, who was the county clerk there. And while she denied issuing licenses to people petitioning for gay marriage. And the thing with that, it's a ministerial duty. It's not discretionary. Like the Supreme Court, completely discretionary. You appeal a case from a trial court, like if you're in Texas and you go to the Fifth Circuit, they have to hear your appeal. They have to deal with it. They have to issue something, right? But the Supreme Court, they get to pick and choose. It's discretionary. Well, if you go to a county clerk and you apply for a license and you check all the right boxes and you do everything appropriately, she has to issue it. She doesn't have she can't say, oh, well, you know, I don't think y'all be a good couple. I'm not going to give it to you. Or you didn't do this. There's not discretion. If you do it the right way, it has to be given to you. So this couple sued. They got $100,000 in damages, $260,000 in attorney's fees, and she is appealing it. And she is alleging it infringes her freedom of religion, which, you know, there's a lot of far-right Christian coalition people who love to make this argument while at the same time being horrified by the thought of Sharia courts in America and Islamist extremists using their religion to justify stuff. And it's because they're too stupid to see that it's the same thing, right? And no, if you work for the government and you have a job, you can't just decide you're not going to do your job because of your religion. Oh, so I'm a police officer, but my religion says I can't judge anyone, so I'm not going to arrest anyone. No, of course you can't. Yeah. So I don't see them granting review. I hope they don't, but we have a pretty wild court nowadays that doesn't seem to be constrained by stare decisis or precedent, right? That they seem to feel like they can make up whatever they want and do whatever they want. And it is an incredibly conservative court, which is good for some things and bad for others. Yeah. So it does. I mean, the distinct possibility exists that we might go back to an America where states can tell gay people that they can't get married. How, as a gay American,
yeah,
what are your thoughts?
So, I mean, you know, this kind of goes back to, I know that we were talking, what was it, last week about the rainbow crosswalks being removed. And I had made a comment about, yeah, while that upsets me and everything, there are bigger fish to fry right now with what's happening in America with things that are impacting the LGBTQ plus community. This being a huge part of that. When I think about this, it's very disheartening. I feel like that if, let's say that the Supreme Court does decide to hear this, and let's say that they make a decision to overturn like what they did with Roe v. Wade, a lot of these states are going to have trigger laws that are most likely going to go into place across the country, including Texas, where we live, and including a lot of the southern states, but even other states that are a little bit more purple or left leaning. I believe like Michigan, like states like that where you would expect it to be legalized already in the state constitution, where it's not. So I think the thing with this is it's really disheartening. It really upsets me. But also on the flip side of it, I think that this has a potential to really energize the LGBTQ plus community when it comes to a lot of these things. Because let's be real, there's a lot of people in the states where if it eventually, if they decide to hear the case, it eventually, let's say that it would get overturned. There are a lot of people in this country who don't have the means to leave from one of the states where the trigger laws may go into place to move to a California or a New York or an Illinois or whatever are the more liberal left-leaning states where oftentimes where people feel a little bit more protected. And I'll be honest with you, even in the state of Texas, I love Texas. I love Houston. I don't feel as safe in Texas when I leave the city of Houston or the city of Dallas or the city of Austin, like states where I'm like, if I'm in the loop or the inner loop of Houston, like I don't have an issue with holding a guy's hand walking down the street. Like I'm not concerned about that. Like I feel just as safe as anybody else would in that regard. But I think that this is going to be something that we're going to have to watch closely and figure out actually what the Supreme Court does. I will say this much: I think they're going to hear the case, and I think it's going to get overturned. From a personal perspective, that's what I think is going to happen.
You know, I don't think it'll be overturned. I think it would, you know, I think the Republican Party, because of their stance on public safety and personal responsibility and accountability, which I think most of it's empty just words, but at least they're giving lip service to the upset Americans who feel like the working class Americans who feel like the Democrats have abandoned their concerns, right? The concerns of the working tax-paying American about having a safe public, where it does seem like the Democrats have prioritized the unhoused and migrants and everyone other than, you know, working Americans. But the Republicans often can't help themselves. And Dobbs is a huge example of that, right? Why, here's the thing. At the end of the day, whether you feel good or bad about abortion, it is probably based on religious beliefs that they are wanting to enforce on other people. And I personally, I'm not a huge fan of it, but I'm also not a fan of enforcing my religious beliefs on other people. So it kind of cuts both ways. But it was what allows the Republican greed machine to just not take over, because they can't let go of bigotry and biases. And I think the same thing. I think it'll tremendously hurt the electoral chances of the Republicans, which is why I don't think it's going to happen, right? I think that it's because I think there's a lot of Americans in the middle, and I consider myself a pragmatic centrist, who are just going to say, like, Jesus Christ, let people live. And it's also a horrible idea for the building blocks of an American society, right? There's nothing better. Was that you, that noise, or is it your computer?
Listen, I had some.
Pardon while we're on this show here. It's a real problem.
Listen, I've been trying to tell the station to get me a new computer for a while, so maybe we'll just put them on blast for it.
Yeah, I don't believe you. I think it was you. But the truth is here that, you know, like I live in Montrose, right? The historic gay community that's getting way too bougie, and we got this shelter that's led to some crime that just opened a block from my house, so I'm not a fan of. But I mean, the dual income, no children households that many gay families are, it's great. It's the building block of a society. And it's also, people don't think about the secondary issues of personal dignity, like when someone's dying in a hospital, and if they're not legally married, their partners have been historically denied access. And that's just horrible, right? And you've got to hope that it's not going to happen, or if it does, the more center-right justices like Barrett will say, yeah, no, this is too far. But I can't stress this enough, that at the end of the day, if this is overturned, it speaks directly to the judicial math of Loving v. Virginia. And so if
It's gonna be
you
a slippery
have
slope.
Justice Thomas as the architect of overturning Obergefell, and also a man in a mixed race marriage, and he returns us to it very possibly could return us to the era of miscegenation laws, and it just seems crazy to me.
Yeah, well, and kind of going off of that, and then we're going to have to wrap this up because we're already over time. But the one thing that's interesting to me too is kind of going off of like a lot of the things that people are also keeping their eye on within the same sex community and stuff is they're keeping an eye on what are the impacts going to be when it comes to HIV research. What are the impacts going to be when it comes to people being able to gain access to PrEP and stuff like that. Things that I don't want to say it only protects same sex people because it's more than just that, but
I don't know how we got on top of Matt. You just need to stop sleeping around so much and use safe sex. That's all I'm saying, right? I don't want to get into that in your business, but get yourself to church. There's a nice one down the street from my house that is very welcoming to all communities. You stop being so nasty.
Oh, my. A whole
Real
mess.
talk.
Real talk. But no, I mean, I just think there's a lot going on. I think this is going to turn into a potentially slippery slope for a lot of people across the country. And I mean, only time will tell. Hopefully we'll have an answer within 3 weeks from now on if they're going to hear the case. So we'll find out. So,
Yes,
right, Charles, thank you so much for letting me join you on here. It's both of the bearded men, although mine's got a little bit less gray in it than what yours does.
So now it's ageism. Okay. Noted. I'm calling HR when we get off.
Hold on a second. Let me go ahead and protect myself. Let me go ahead and put this up here in the upper left corner. Opinion.
There you go.
All right, Charles, I'll catch you later.
We good?
Yep, I am good.
That's fun.
Let me end this recording. And did I do okay, Charles?
Yeah, you did great. But see, this